The alarm on the bridge did not sound like an alarm. It sounded like 400 people holding their breath at once. My name is Elena Whitfield, and I was never supposed to be on a warship. I was a translator, assigned to the Coalition flagship Vantiris as part of a diplomatic exchange program between Earth and the Coalition of the Outer Ring. My job was simple: sit quietly, listen to alien languages, turn their words into something my superiors back home could understand. I was not a soldier. I did not know how to read a tactical display. I did not know what a jump signature looked like on a screen. But I knew fear when I saw it, and on that day, I saw 400 ships feel it at the exact same moment. We had been sailing through a quiet stretch of space, called the Ashland Corridor, a region the Coalition considered fully secured. The fleet around me was enormous. 400 warships, stretched out in a formation so wide, it took nearly 6 minutes for light to cross from one end to the other. I had been told, more than once, that no single force in this part of the galaxy could stand against a fleet this size. The Coalition captain, a tall being named Torvun Kessa, had said it to me directly during a meal on my second week aboard. "Nothing challenges us here," he had said. Not anymore. I remembered that sentence very clearly, because less than an hour after we crossed into the corridor, every single one of those 400 ships turned around and ran. It started with a single light on the main display. One contact. One ship, moving toward us from the edge of the corridor at a slow, steady pace. No weapons were charging, no aggressive maneuvers, just a lone vessel, sailing straight toward the largest fleet I had ever seen in my life. I leaned forward in my seat, expecting nothing. A single ship against 400 was not a threat. It was not even a number worth mentioning. I assumed someone would hail it, identify it, and move on with the day. Instead, the bridge went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence where you can hear your own pulse in your ears. I looked around at the crew stationed near me. Their eyes had all locked onto the same point of light on the screen. One of the sensor officers, a young female officer named Eilith Doran, who had always been kind to me, gripped the edge of her console so tightly that her fingers changed color. "Confirm registry," Captain Kessa said, and his voice had changed. It was lower now, tighter. "Confirmed," Eilith said. "Human hull design. Independent registry. No escort. No support vessels detected." I sat up straighter at the word human. My chest tightened with a strange kind of pride, followed almost immediately by confusion, because nobody around me looked proud. They looked like they had just seen something walk out of a nightmare they had heard about as children. "One ship," I said quietly, mostly to myself. "It's just one ship." The alien beside me, a communications officer named Pralun, turned his head slowly toward me. His 4 eyes, usually calm and steady, were wide. "You do not understand what that means to us," he said. I asked him what he meant. He did not answer. He was already turning back to his console, his hands moving fast over controls I did not recognize. Captain Kessa stood from his chair. I had never seen him stand during a routine contact before. He always remained seated, calm, detached. Now he was on his feet, staring at the single light on the screen as if it were 400 lights instead of one. "Order the fleet to hold position," he said. Then, a moment later, in a voice that cracked slightly at the edges, "No. Belay that. Full withdrawal. All ships, immediate retreat vector." I could not believe what I had just heard. 400 warships, the largest and most powerful fleet I had ever seen, and the order being given was to run from a single unarmed vessel that had not even opened a communication channel yet. The bridge erupted into motion. Officers shouted coordinates. Screens filled with jump calculations. Around me, alarms that had nothing to do with combat began sounding. Instead, alarms meant for emergency retreat, a sound I had never even heard before boarding this ship. I grabbed the edge of my seat as the Vantiris shuddered beneath me, engines pushed to a speed I did not know they could reach. Outside the viewport, I watched other ships in the fleet begin to scatter. Not in an organized retreat, not in any kind of formation. They broke apart the way a group of birds scatters when a predator appears among them, each ship moving on its own, desperate to put distance between itself and that single point of light. I turned to Praloon again, my hands shaking now, more from confusion than fear. "Please," I said, "tell me what is happening. That is one ship. We have 400. He looked at me, and for the first time since I had met him, I saw something in his expression that looked almost like grief. "We do not fear the ship," he said. "We fear what a human ship means when it comes alone." I did not understand. Not yet. I asked him to explain, and he told me a story that the coalition had passed between its captains for years. A story I had never once heard in any of the diplomatic briefings back on Earth. He said that decades ago, a coalition patrol fleet had encountered a single human vessel in a distant system, damaged, alone, and far from any support. The coalition ships had assumed, as I had, that a fleet many times its size would end the encounter quickly and without difficulty. Instead, the human ship did not attempt to flee. It did not attempt to surrender. It turned to face the approaching fleet and held its position, broadcasting a single message that the coalition translators later confirmed was not a threat, not a warning, but a simple statement of intent. "We are not leaving." The coalition fleet in that old story outnumbered the human ship more than 30 to 1, and yet, by the time the encounter ended, the coalition had lost enough ships that the surviving captains refused to speak of the exact numbers in any official report. Praloon did not tell me exactly what had happened during that battle, and I did not ask him to. I could see in his face that it was not a memory he wanted to relive, even secondhand. "Since that day," he said, "our doctrine changed. A human ship that runs is one thing. A human ship that does not run, that holds its position and waits, is something else entirely. It means the ship believes it does not need to run, and in our experience, that belief is rarely wrong." I looked back at the screen. The single ship had not moved. It held its position exactly where it had first appeared, drifting calmly in the space our entire fleet had once considered ours. "But it hasn't attacked," I said. "It hasn't even opened a channel." "That is what frightens us the most," Praloon said. "A ship that attacks, we understand. A ship that says nothing and does nothing, simply waiting, tells us that it does not consider us a threat worth reacting to." I sat back in my chair, trying to absorb what he had just told me. I thought about the ship out there, alone, facing down 400 vessels without so much as raising its shields, and I wondered who was aboard it. A single captain, perhaps, a small crew, people like me, people from Earth, going about whatever mission had brought them to this quiet corridor, with no idea that their simple presence had just sent an entire fleet into a full retreat. The Vantiris continued pulling away, joining the scattered remains of the coalition fleet as it regrouped at a safe distance far beyond the corridor. Captain Kessa remained standing at the front of the bridge, long after the order had been given, staring at the tactical display even after the single contact had faded from range. I approached him carefully, unsure if it was appropriate, but my curiosity had grown too strong to ignore. "Captain," I said, "may I ask you something?" He turned to me, and for a moment, the composed authority I had grown used to seemed to slip away, replaced by something more tired, more honest. "You may. Were you truly afraid of one ship?" He considered the question for a long moment before answering. "I was not afraid of the ship itself, Elena. I was afraid of what it represented. Your people do not measure strength the way we do. We calculate odds. We calculate risk. Your kind, when it chooses to stand its ground, does not seem to calculate anything at all. That is not a weapon we know how to defend against." I did not know what to say to that. I had spent my entire life thinking of humanity as young among the stars, small, still learning our place among older and more powerful species. I had never once considered that somewhere out here, far from home, our reputation had already outgrown us, carried forward by stories we had never heard, told by people we had never met. I looked out the viewport one final time, back toward the empty stretch of space where the single ship still drifted, calm and unmoving, exactly where it had chosen to be. 400 warships had broken formation and run, and somewhere out there, alone in the quiet dark, one human ship had simply stayed exactly where it was,